Lucy, if you were going to advise Harry, because Harry said in this very long BBC interview on Friday night, I do want a reconciliation. I want to see my father. I want to see my family. What would you tell him to do?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is that a lot needs to happen behind closed doors. And the more that he goes public with his complaints, but also his longings, it weakens his argument. And the major problem, as he himself identifies, is the fact that he wrote an explosive book and betrayed so many confidences within the family. So the scenario is that they feel that he's gone too public. So the first thing that needs to happen is to kind of retrench that and make sure that things that get said are said behind closed doors. And mediation can be a very good format for that. But it may very well be that things have gone too far, that the betrayal of trust is so deep that it's actually becoming, it feels perhaps dangerous for the other side to engage with him.
Well, you can kind of see why, can't you? Because if you can't trust that anything said behind closed doors will stay there, then you think, well, gosh, whatever I say, even if I say, yes, I would like to meet you, that might be publicised the next day. And the whole thing is kind of wide open, isn't it, to scrutiny of the entire world?
And also there's some sense of passive aggressiveness in this interview, that sense of, look at me, I'm being incredibly transparent here and I only want the best and I want a reconciliation. But the rest of the behaviour speaks to the very opposite of that, which is that I can't keep my mouth shut, I give broadcast interviews around the world at the drop of a hat. And it rather reinforces the argument that many members of the royal family have, which is we can't trust you. We simply cannot trust you. And that level of mistrust, particularly if you've got people who, for example, may have been going through medical treatment, who need a very serene environment, who don't want extra emotional stress placed upon them, that may very well be a boundary that they don't want to cross.
Absolutely.
Especially as he suggested that in the interview, Harry suggested that some of the things happening to him and his family could be intentional. So for him to suggest that doesn't bode well to try and repair something if someone was to come out in public and say what's happening is possibly intentional.
Yes. Let's talk about whether sometimes you can't reconcile with family members, even your mum, even your dad, even your siblings, even your own children, because there's a toxic quality which is so destructive. Because people say, you know, if you say, I don't speak to my mum, people say, your mum? You only got one mother. I don't speak to my dad. What, you don't speak to your own father? What could your father possibly have done? But actually, are there some cases where really, however closely related you are, it's probably better to protect yourself?
I am really, really glad that you have raised this topic, because in all of the discussion about this particular situation, it never really gets raised, the potential that this might be the scenario that the royal family are dealing with. Absolutely, it happens probably more than you think. And we have heard people talk, for example, about narcissism, or you might hear about abuse. And I'm not saying for 1 second that those are the elements that the royal family have had to deal with. But in other families, for sure, the most dangerous option would actually be to try and reincorporate that person back in your life. That actually the healthy stance, the more loving stance, is about saying, no, I am setting a boundary. You have damaged me too far. Enough is enough.
Right.
And I work with a lot of people who are in that very, very difficult situation, but it gives them peace moving forward.
All right, let's start taking calls on this, because the calls are coming in thick and fast. Thank you so much. Let's talk to Beverly. Hello, Beverly. Thank you for ringing. Now, this is a very sad situation. Your father passed away and family members didn't even tell you that the funeral was taking place. Gosh, how hurtful.
No, they didn't.
How hurtful.
I'm still hurting about it now.
I'm surprised. Gosh.
I was his daughter, and I kind of walked away from my siblings because of toxic. They were damaging my mental health.
Yeah.
So I believe I did the right thing. But when somebody dies, and I was close to my dad, you put your differences to one side, and you let the daughter know that when's the funeral. And I had to ring around all the funeral parlours, and somebody said to me, have you tried phoning up Pure Cremation? And I did, and I found out that he was cremated in Andover sometime at the end of October.
Oh, no,
And,
that's terrible. Gosh.
And my brother's got his ashes. And I asked my mum in the care home, I said, look, is he going to get a little plaque at the church where the snowdrops are? Because I know that's what he liked. And I don't know, I'll have to ask Stephen. And even now, this is what, 6 months plus, I'm not getting any answers. And it's got to the point now where I won't ask my mum anymore because she says, I don't know, why don't you ask Stephen, and put the phone down.
Oh, right.
And
Beverly,
I'm not gonna phone
this
him
is
up
awful
because-
for you. It's quite clear that it's just awful. I'm really, really sorry. I think that's incredibly cruel behaviour. I don't know what the background is, but just hearing what happened sounds absolutely dreadful. Lucy, is there any advice that you can give to Beverly?
Yes, Beverly, first of all, thank you for phoning in because it is a really painfully and still quite alive pain for you. I really applaud you for setting the boundary that you did earlier by walking away from your siblings. I think this is about how can you regain a little bit of the power. And I think you're right. You probably won't get answers from other members of your family because that's the power that they have over you. So I think you need to do another round of taking the power back, maybe create some small service or some ceremony so that you can say goodbye to your dad in your own way, on your own terms. And you mentioned the plaque and the snowdrops. I can't help feeling that maybe you could buy some snowdrops or plant some flowers in a pot, and then you'll always have that with you, and that will be your equivalent of having the ashes.
But Beverly, would you want to reconcile with your siblings now, or is this such a blow that you couldn't?
No, because I can't put myself back in that environment because they cause too much damage. I mean, from put downs to passive aggressive comments, I had enough. The worm turned in the end, and I didn't want anything to do with them. I called them out, but to not tell me about my dad and just keep me hanging on like this. I don't know. I just think it's so cruel.
It's very cruel.
It's uncalled for.
No, it's dreadful, but I wonder whether Lucy is right when she says, you know, you need to somehow bring about some kind of ceremony, some kind of closure, some kind of farewell, something for yourself because you were excluded from the real one, and you could, you know, give it the significance that you need it to have. And the snowdrops does seem like a place to start.
I think it's very much about taking that power back. And as I say, you've done it once. You've proved to yourself that you've got that inner steel, which I'm really admiring of. It needs one more push of that to be able to have that goodbye with your dad. I agree with you. I think the word is cruel. We don't know the background, but in a way they're kind of showing their true colours by not even being able to reconcile at the deathbed, and therefore, take back that control and have that ending on your own terms.
All right, Beverly, thank you for calling. Lots of love. Lucy, if there are lots of people watching right now feeling a bit like Beverly, but feeling that they would like to reach out, they do want to, you know, they do want to rebuild bridges. You know, people sometimes say, you know, whatever you're annoyed about, time is that you've only got one life, you've only got one chance, you know, how will you feel afterwards if your mum or dad should pass away or your siblings should, and you think, oh my gosh, you know, now I think about it, I wish I'd gone there. You don't want to live with that regret. So if you feel that you'd like to make some kind of overture, what do you think is the right sort of way to do it?
Well, Siobhan put it rather well a little while earlier, this idea of least said, soonest mended, that actually sometimes it is about swallowing some of the things that you might have wanted to say. And frankly, that's my role often in a scenario whereby people can say things to me, but they don't necessarily have to say it to the person concerned.
Right.
And as a result, waters get smoothed a little easier. It's a bit like when in marital relationships, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? That sense of actually, do I need to be able to say all this to that one particular person? I'm not saying you don't need to say it to yourself. Sometimes this is really important. You have to own it, you have to own your feelings, and you have to give yourself that authentic experience. But you might not necessarily have to say it to the person concerned. So it's possibly about writing a letter saying, I would love to just let bygones be bygones and maybe start again. This is the problem, I think, sometimes with Harry is, let's say he's had therapy, he's understood how to communicate and get his feelings out. But you don't have to go on national television to do that. You do it with your therapist or you do it with your partner. You don't necessarily have to actually say it to the person concerned.
That's a very, very good point, actually, and not something that's often made clear about, you know, because you think of therapy, you think of getting off your chest, saying everything you feel. What about not saying everything you feel and just saying, look, we're here. I would like you in my life. I would like to make a connection. Can we do it?
And sometimes there might need to be a bit of an apology because a couple creates the couple. Similarly, in family relationships, you create a dynamic between two people. It's not just one person. So sometimes it is about recognizing the part that you might have played, the assumptions that you made, or the things that you said in the heat of the moment. And it takes a very big person to be able to say, I did some of that. I might have hurt you too.
I'm terribly sorry.